So hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today where we're talking about resolving critical IT performance issues and getting projects back on track. I'm Caroline Hill, your host. I'm from Legal IT Insider, and I've got a brilliant panel of speakers today who I will introduce. First up, in no particular order, is Naz Paramanathan, who is Finance Systems Consultant at Walkers. I love that. Naz, until September 2024, was Finance System Manager at Walkers. His previous roles include Finance Systems Consultant at RPC, and he's held the role of Finance Systems Analyst at Travers Smith, Herbert Smith Freehills, Maples and Calder, and Ashurst. And at Walkers, he led the rollout of Aderant Expert Billing, which will form a lot of the conversation that we're having today. Hi, Naz.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining. We have Adrienne Manscant, who is Billing Program Manager at Pinsent Masons, a role that she's held for just under 4 years. Adrienne has held the role of Program Manager and been responsible for the selection of major systems at Linklaters, Gowling, WRG, and before that, RAG, Lawrence Graham, and Shoesmiths. And at Pinsent's, she led the global billing transformation program that we're going to talk about today. Hi, Adrienne.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Nice to see you. Last but not least, we have Faz Ahmed from Prolifix Testing, our webinar partner. Faz has worked in business development at a range of technology and testing companies, including most recently Test House, which is a specialist testing and DevOps company focusing on Microsoft Dynamics AX, CRM, and 365. And Faz joined Prolifix Testing in 2018, and they provide testing services to higher education, legal, and financial services organisations. Hi, Faz.
Hey, Caroline.
Thanks for joining me. So we've got a packed agenda. Everyone's saying hi in the chat. So many of you already have. Please ask your questions as we go. We'll be taking questions along the way. Just to let you know the running order. So we've got, this is very much about an experiential webinar, and I called it, I think on LinkedIn, a group therapy session. We've got an intimate group of us here. Really welcome your questions. And it's very much going to be over to the speakers, to be honest with you. But so Naz was implementing Aderant Expert Billing and needed to ensure that the firm's global infrastructure could support the expert load once employees have begun using the application. I'm not going to go into that more because he's going to go into that in great detail. Adrienne was running a 2-year Aderant billing transformation project, including a move to paperless billing that was at risk of derailing. She'll be talking us through that. And we'll be looking at also just there's a huge amount of work being done in the sector in the shift towards cloud. So we'll be sharing, there'll be some shared learning conversations, and we'll be looking for the key things for firms to watch out for from the experience of the group here. So Faz, but before we dive in, I'm going to ask Naz first, but before we dive in, for people that aren't familiar with Prolifix Testing, which some people on the call may not be, just tell us a little bit about the work that you do.
Yeah, of course, Caroline. I'll keep it brief. So Prolifix, we've been working within the legal sector for 20 years now. So we work with both large and small law firms, so people like Slaughter and May, White and Case, and Herbert Smith Freehills Kramer. And what we try and do is add value in implementations, upgrades, and cloud migrations. So today I'm lucky to be joined by 2 of our customers. It's specifically around some of the challenges they faced around practice management systems and the billing lifecycle. And one of the things that we find with law firms that we work with, still, in this day and age of AI and automation, lots of law firms have to rely upon end users jumping on their machines and trying to do their normal workflows just to get an idea of, will this platform be performant? What we've done, and which I think Adrienne and Naz will speak about, is how we can use automation to be able to mimic what end users would do. So before you go live with a new platform, particularly around PMSs and billing systems, you're able to confidently make sure that at month end and year end, your platforms will be able to support all of those transactions. So that's the kind of value we provide, and we do some really cool stuff outside of this around generative AI and agentic automation. But that in a nutshell is how we try and deliver value to law firms.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. And I know you're going to jump in and talk more specifically about the way that you're engaged and with the fans. So, but Naz, if I could sort of over to you, really, if you can talk about perhaps a little bit of an introduction to Walkers as well. I'm sure most of us are familiar, but yeah, if you could sort of over to you.
Hi, I'm Naz. I'm working for Walkers as a financial consultant lately. Since I implemented the billing, the project is ongoing and support. So Walkers are one of the leading offshore law firm, have multiple jurisdictions, and our billings are catered for mainly the offshore clients. At the same time, we do a local accounting, local work for Ireland, Channel Island, and London is the mainly Cayman based. So multi-jurisdiction support is required. So our journey starts when I joined. Our Advent setup has been long outdated. They've been historically using Advent for longer years than anyone probably came across. And because of that, they actually progressively customized it. Customized in such an extent that the core functionality been customized. So we faced a scenario where, okay, if you want to upgrade Advent or to bring the benefit of the latest and greatest that Advent currently providing through the framework, we can't because our ecosystem doesn't support that. So one of the requirements came to us as, okay, before you upgrade, advice from Advent, trying to bring to be a standardized environment where we all recognize your system, basically. So the billing reason is because we heavily used a third-party offering, probably known as Expert Pre-Bill Viewer, Pre-Bill Manager, and the bill file customization, so that almost we had a very simulated environment, like a paperless pre-bill. It's a workflow-driven, but it's actually back office trigger-driven process, basically. So Walkers are actually very familiar with the decentralized billing. So secretaries prepare the bill, push to the Fiona push to it to the partner approves it, and come back to finance. So the very perfect firm for having expert billing in user experience will actually acceptable, right? But the problem we face, the environment is outdated. So we have to upgrade it quickly as much as possible, bring it to the point where we can implement the framework modules. But as we decided that because a lot of data cleansing can be happening this time, so we initiated a first phase of the project is basically upgrade the Advent to the 8.2, the latest at the time available EXP8. And that project says not just the upgrade, at the same time data cleansing, decustomization, identified all the mandatory fields are required for expert core system, and bring them back into the standard columns and pocket holders and everything, so that Advent configuration will understand and appreciate. So that's the large part of the work done. Then the upgrade is simply bringing to the latest and greatest. And that phase, what we found, we constantly having other major issue, performance. So because we made our ecosystem of servers all on-prem in Cayman, we suffered as a network latency. So everyone logging outside of Cayman have to face with that, basically. So the Citrix is the only way we could have ever connected to the Advent environment. If you're trying to go through the network shortcuts, it takes forever. So Citrix is the only way we can able to let the international users, anyone working outside of Cayman, is a way to do it. So, but constantly having problems, especially at the month end. So it's known for the issues. So what we decided as a part of the upgrade project, let's do the performance testing. Let's bring our environment as recommended as much as possible by all the experts. So our requirement is basically 600 Fiona. We're not that many license-wise, but we like to bring up an environment to cater for 600 Fiona environment solution, basically. So we went back to the Advent tech team, asked for the recommended spec for our SQL Server setups, app servers, auxiliary server, admin server, all put together exactly how Advent say that should be the typical setup. And we done the upgrade on it. And this time we also had other concern. In the past, every time the upgrade happened, there's a business outage and disruptions and failure to run on the first go live. So the partnership requested us we can't afford any more business disruption. What you can offer? So having consulting with Advent, we come back with a pre-prod concept. Basically, there's a cluster for the production, but we secured the same set of our going forward environment servers are under the pre-prod. Then we have a dev and test. So based on that, we build up a pre-prod. That is where we upgraded Advent and put through all the testing, UAT done on that, and that's our going for environment for the newer world of Advent. Unfortunately, as we expected, we have a number of legacy third-party solutions built up on delivering the billing, the up-shell billing, and they failed to work on newer upgraded environment and a number of issues. So we immediately able to roll back to the older 8.1 version, and that's the proven concept of how we can do going forward updates, big updates like that, without the business disruption. That we actually able to eliminate this kind of risk. So that's actually proven to us that we bring Liquid back to again second go live worked. Again this time, the perform testing hasn't found anything. Unfortunately, the up-shell billing, they were trying to do a performance, they couldn't do it. They can open up application, the third party we work with us at the time. And one thing they categorically said they can't do a Citrix-based testing. So we haven't tested nothing. We just went live with on a good faith basis, and it's failed. And so our environment at the time, Citrix put up by, and we all predicted at the time it can cope with the 300 connections at any point in time. And our traffic is split between Cayman-based users and overseas Office-based users. So we catered for around 350 connections anytime will work for Citrix, but that's actually not proven correct. And first time we failed that. So we, on emergency basis, we put together an additional Citrix server to manage the situation on the upgraded environment, and that worked. So from 10 host servers on Citrix side, Citrix Farm, we increased to 16, and that seems to be done the trick. And the users are comfortably connecting and doing the work on up-shell billing. So that's worked. And the second phase, this time we categorically said, no, performance testing is required, and especially on a Citrix environment, that is where we see the future. All the launcher methods are available, but not tested, that's not proven. The network shortcuts, not the method for the majority of the up-shell billing users. So let's focus heavily. So we shortlisted Prolifix based on that expertise. They come on board quickly. They give us a specification for the performance testing VMs, and especially softwares like a load runner for the Citrix testing, everything put together. And the majority of time they spend just sit with us and going through the process. What is the process? What is the billing process looks like? Okay, where you start? What is the starting point? What's the matters? What's the count? So to support this project, we also put a trace around every month end for the last 6 months. What is our maximum count of those activities, right? How many pre-bills coming into play? How many matters involved? How many users? How many connections? So it's been traced through the SQL server as well as our framework server, other application servers, and we counted at any point in time, workers need to be able to cope with 1,500 pre-bills at a time. And it's a combination of all the matters and users involved, and that's why we are actually processing as a maximum count. So that's our first benchmark, and as a requirement for the Prolifix to, can you please give us a scenario which we can comfortably support up to 1,500 pre-bills at any point in time, and we just give a couple of benchmarking. Okay, we have a maximum any point in time. The current matters is 6,000. So it could be a combination of matters, users. We need a maximum count of 1,500 pre-bills. What else? So we're trying to simplify as much as possible our workflow, because we know as experience having adding additional customization or the additional routing around it on a approval basis is always caused bottlenecks in the past, in my experience. So I kept it simple. But let's get through the mandatory side of it. Have a pre-bill, work through, mark up, approve it, and everything else will fall onto one single routing is called finance. Let them deal with it, right? So any exception, we push to a very simple workflow based. People goes into the WIP aware and review the WIP, and select the pre-bill and push the time to the pre-bill. That action happens on the WIP-aware and it's web-based, no issues, can work. Then what next step? So we simply said, okay, there's 3 scenarios we're looking at here. Once the WIP-aware created a bill, so we wanted a paperless pre-bill workflow kickoff, a markup workflow, and someone need to go through to the markups or set the all the time on the clock is a bill as a fees and complete. The next step is someone go in as an approver, which is a billing attorney normally, and it is approve the markup pre-bill and complete the task. And everything else, we don't worry about anything else. So just 3 major scenarios we created, and that's applied to the non-Citrix environment as well as Citrix environment. So I'm going to talk heavily on the Citrix environment findings testings. So that's put together. And so what the Prolifix team did, one thing, they give us okay, this is end-to-end journey of the process where we start, and they trying to simulate that through the scripting. And very cleverly scripted in such a way that the only thing they couldn't do on action is the on-screen actions. Basically, is that a decision comes across on the screen, and they couldn't support that. So we eliminate that. So we simply said, just push all the pre-bills to the pre-bill, and bill everything on the clock, and approve it, and see how long it takes. And that's our simple mechanism for metrics for finding a thing. And ideally, what we said is on a best case scenario, if we can process 1,500 pre-bills in 1 hour, that's the environment we never have that now. So it's taking longer than in the shell. So let's do that. So long time been spent. I mean, meticulously planned, meticulously scripted around the skilled individuals. So what I need to do, make sure they have enough data, put through a number of similar testing scenarios, right? So while preparing the debugging the scripts, they need to have a data. So I be able to create through the scripting number of matters, 1,000 matters, 1 million time cards, 1 million disbursements, and 1,000 users. We can do all that in a pre-pro environment. I can, as soon as I create the data, they put through the testing and keep finding a fault and come to the point. Let's do a testing, right? We have ready. Let's press the button. And unfortunately, because of pre-prod is sitting in a production cluster, we are concerned that if you do a ramp-up testing on the production environment, it can cause a problem to the business. So we only forced to do the testing at the weekend, but on the simulated environment, basically. So our servers expect everything as it is. We run the first test, and as expected, it failed. And what the outcome is, which clearly tell us is, it's not the application, it's actually a server resources for causing it. So we actually monitored, run a number of performance logs basically on each app servers, each SQL server. The interesting finding, I can just give you some ideas here. And so our SQL servers maxing out after the 2/3 of the expected connections comes in. App servers all running on 60 to 80 and sometimes maxing out on all 6 servers are maximally load for creating that scenario, which is simply allowing 320 users connections run through. So we're not even anywhere closer to what we are trying to achieve. So this is based on our current setup, how many CPUs on a SQL, how many RAM on a SQL server, and how many CPU and RAM on app servers, and what is the Citrix server looks like. So what the Citrix server finding is, although we found, then we go back and review this, and Prolifix and me come up with the idea, okay, we got to ramp up our SQL server first from what their suggestion based on the findings. So the SQL server was originally, according to spec, 16 CPU with a 128 GB RAM. And that's for the environment that can cope with 600 Fiona. But our calculation, our suggestion is going to be made, it has to be a 24 CPU and 128 GB RAM is what we're expecting to meet at least the minimum spec we put together, minimum required the benchmarking we're looking for. And that's been added straight away because we are keen on achieving this. Then we also find our app servers are ramping up. So on a ramp up test, simulated test. So we then go back and review and then said, okay, this time we're going to add additional CPU to the app servers. So to a 12 CPU and 1664 GB. Then we also checked with Adrun and said, that's not normal, but let's run with it and see. Is that going to solve your problem? So let's do that. And then the second test, actually, then again, the key thing is how flexible the scripts are. Scripts are ready, available. We just put through a data to it. So the gaps between the tests are number of tests been done. That's the success of the testing. So the Prolifix team able to put through getting a scripts ready immediately when our got the servers ready. And also this time we're going to help them with creating enough simulated load traffic. We increase our VMs for the performance testing, which is running a load running software. So you have been able to create more traffic for us to do the testing. So that's been increased from 4 to 6, and that's adding capacity done. We run through the testing this time, all promising. So what our finding says, the SQL Server and app servers are coping well. Then they're running between 20 to 30 capacity, but Citrix servers are hammering 80 to 100%. And the net outcome is we are maxing out as soon as the 200 users connected, we are losing. So the 220 users can get into the connections. They can have a session. So the Citrix servers is where the bottlenecks are. So all the findings are put together nicely to the very comprehensive report with the findings, and able to talk through to the specialist infrastructure team. Looks, this is the situation and how you're going to do it. So the address to it, and so the Citrix servers have from 16 to 24 and meet the minimum requirements. So we don't have no guideline on the Citrix servers normally from Adrun anyway. They wouldn't advise you what is recommended spec. So our guideline is, okay, let's match to the app servers. So if app server is this, and we like to see the Citrix going to be same as that, and we match that to that, and we increase our Citrix host PCs to the 16 to 24, run through the testing, and found the performance acceptable. This is all a Citrix. The first time we able to get through end-to-end performance testing on a real simulated environment and a pre-prod, and that's been put together as a recommendation and as going forward. If you want to have expert billing running comfortably, and this is the scenario that will give you, and if you can meet that and be able to address that immediately, and we go live with it. Just to give you an example, and we used to have a split crowd into the Adrun server, Adrun normally Adrun environment. All the Caymans go through the local network shortcuts pointed to the servers on our expert folders, and whereas some of them have tested the launcher as well as part of the expert billing, and not making any difference at all. I mean, the same performance we expected with the launcher shortcuts and a network shortcut, whereas Citrix exceptionally performed well, and all the problematic areas we identified used to be, and they comfortably getting in, and although we monitoring how many connections, are we reaching a max 350, or are we going to slow down? No, and it seems to be able to cope with it. And that's kind of give a lot of comfort for the infrastructure team to go away, and let's make everything standardized and formalized. Let's do the Citrix the only way that offering for the Adrun. So Adrun expert environment, everyone going to launch through Citrix and make it simple, and maintenance going forward easy, and let's keep adding the number of counts. The connection is increased. Then let's have we thought we actually provided a formula where what is each PC can comfortably host. We found to do all the actions we have planned, only 5 connections we comfortably host per PC. So that's our count, and that's done the trick for our specialists. So they're actually accommodating that many Citrix PCs right now. And for example, all the users using Adrun, expert billing, everything now connecting through Citrix. And let's take away, I mean, not necessarily it's our Adrun project, it's actually infrastructure project, but we able to find the assistance of Fastest team and able to put through the detail behind it and get the data available, simulate the environment, test through a number of scenarios. So our only issue right now with expert billing is the functional gaps. Is haven't addressed it correctly. We're probably going to carry on refining, retuning the processes, and probably going to come up with some additional placeholders for the workflow and everything. But the performance testing concern have gone away now. So we all know that expert billing will work, provided that you actually meet the right balance of the resources of the server, and make sure not go overboard on the customization side, and trying to keep it as standardized as much as possible. And that's a lesson learned. And I'm pleased I be able to go through the live environment now. We actually now proceeding with the other framework applications. So we are going to go live soon on AP, and they already gone live on GL, and the entity manager and everything now come into play. And our new expert environment will happily host in the Citrix going forward, and going forward, there's no concern about the performance side. And the next step is the cloud first. Obviously, we all talk about Sierra, but I think that they are planning for it. And but in the meantime, before we do the Sierra conversion, we're probably going to do another upgrade, and that's coming soon with the latest 8.4 upgrade. And one thing they learned, we put together a pre-prod environment concept and testing, everything done, and it's now going to easier project for us to do the simple upgrade and going forward. And if we need, probably we need to do a quick performance testing. We have all the data, the scripts are there, Prolifix team can come on board quickly on a weekend, able to run through that. And that can be repeated number of times. That's the main advantage. We had the money spent, time spent actually on the reusable system we have now. We have a performance testing server set up, and that's there, sitting there, waiting for any time you can process through. So it's a very good experience for me, with the experience of over 25 years working with a number of firms. And I got to say, well, I don't know like me saying it, but my experience with the framework is awful. And I always suffer performance. But and we put together a fantastic workflow together and everything, and the bottlenecks are there, and it's always there, and nobody can able to understand and why it's taking that so much time to come back next step. And this, I think that's one of the major concerns. Hopefully, it's improving soon, and that's my major worry. Especially we put together a billing, which is a back office function, to the front end fee earning people. We need to make sure there's no unnecessary delays, and they're going to get heavily frustrated quickly as well. So before we put that in front of the fee earner and partner, we need to make sure it's working comfortably end to end. And that is the thing that I achieved out of this whole project, with the help of Prolifix.
And you're still smiling, Naz. Goodness me. Thank you. That's a lot of information. That's fantastic. Thank you. And then in terms of the performance now for the front end users, sorry, you probably said, but just to reiterate, how would you assess, in terms of time to issue a pre-bill, etc.? Yeah, they're happy with it.
They're happy with it. I mean, they're basically the latest thing we rolled out, Citrix for everyone. That's a major transformation has happened following of that, and there's no complaint. Hasn't seen any outages yet on Citrix, but we have other issues where you have, as I said, the pre-bill gets stuck and all that. That's actually application bottlenecks, and which is actually we know that. Other than that, the next review of the pre-bill workflow going to start again soon, and they're probably going to add more refinements basically. But they will now going to happily host under the Citrix environment.
And what time frame were you talking about roughly for the project that you just described?
So I think it's 3 months with the prolific testing we spent, but it's a month-long project. It's almost a 12 months project for us to do the expert billing, and the upgrade taken us another 12 months. So it's all together to be in a position now. We spend about 2 years, and still counting on some other improvements that we're going to make going forward.
Okay, and perhaps Faz, you can start to come in as well. So in terms of talking about some of the work that you did. You just describe for me, just go into a tiny bit more detail about the simulation. Obviously, one of the issues around this is people being impacted. We know that even lawyers are naturally intolerant about any kind of disruption. And talk to me a little bit about how you mitigated, and tell me a little bit more about the simulation approach and what level of perhaps disruption the lawyers would have experienced. I mean, some is going to be completely unhelpful. You can't help it, but yeah, talk me through that.
Yeah, absolutely, Caroline. I think the whole point is to minimize or avoid disruption. So whether it's, a billing platform going down or becoming unresponsive, that's the whole point of performance testing. And also we want to minimize the time we take from end users. So where we can, we understand the generic billing workflow within law firms. We understand every legal practice has, their own way of approaching it. So we worked with Naz and the team to understand Walker's specific billing process. And it really was as simple as understanding the flow, the process step by step, and then creating a script that would mimic an end user going through each one of those steps. And once we created these steps within a tool, what we were able to do is simply scale it. So we could have, hundreds of end users doing multiple activities and creating thousands of data entries. And it's that ability to script once and execute, as many times as you like, is really what prevents the impact of lots of end users having to do things manually. And particularly when you find issues, that's really where, an automation approach really does pay dividends. It's about, not having to take people away from their day jobs, having to rerun tests, having to do fixes, and then, politely asking them if they can do it all over again. And it's that value. And I think Adrienne, who hopefully is going to speak shortly, I think that's really where it really helped her project and Pinsent Masons.
I mean, I was going to come back to customization and some of the key issues around that, but I think in light of the fact that we've got Adrienne and I'm slightly nervous about losing you, I think we'll just dive straight in, and then we will come back to some more questions about customization, because I want to make the most of you being here. So talk about let's just dive straight into to the project.
And I'm having my own performance issues today, so I'm used to it.
So you're here at the right time. It's fantastic. I know. Let's go.
So Pinsent Masons, global law firm, nearly 30 global offices across the entire globe. 2,500 plus users. Obviously, month-end billing is critical. Traditional law firm where they bill in the last couple of days of the month, every single month.
Oh dear.
Oh.
I thought we were doing really well. I think I might have to jump in. Do you see? Should we just talk? I think I'll come back to the customization question.
Absolutely.
So what are the key? So now, you talk about customization.
Sure.
Obviously, you'd had Adderant for a really long time. This is something that I hear. I know of a firm that decided against fairly recently moving to Sierra as opposed to an on-prem, as opposed to Expert, because of the fears over customization. I think things have moved on actually since then, to be honest with you. I think that people have realized that it's just a case of not if but when, but nonetheless, the customizations are created a monster of their own making. Faz, presumably that's something that you or perhaps you could both speak to this. This is something where your testing process is absolutely key. The automated testing is absolutely key.
My experience with Adderant to minimize customization on the best practice approach. Now Adderant driving towards a configuration rather than a customization. So all these additional things for the firms, the extra requirement can be achieved effectively through the configuration. Don't need to be a new form, new thing, new custom, new columns and all that. That should be minimized, and that's where you start to create all the additional bottlenecks for your performance. So keeping the standard as much as possible and achieve through the little variations through the configuration, which is something that heavily promoted by Adderant on a config manager. And then rather than rewriting, but use the standard APS, have standards workflow as possible, but having a little variation for the additional configuration for approvals, like say, you can put a limit on who can approve what and things. So that can be achieved through the configuration rather than a custom workflow. So, and that will help the Adderant as well. So if we, I think that's the best practice guideline we all now following as a seasoned experts, basically.
And Faz, in terms of the work that you do, though, from the perspective, your perspective.
Yeah, typically we get a lot of work from customers with heavily customized billing workflows. You know, we actually partner with Adrant, and you know they understand that when their customers do a lot of customization on their billing workflow, when it comes to upgrades and updates, they sometimes do face performance issues. You know, it really does affect it. And that's why I think what Naz mentioned, they're moving to the model of configuration versus customization, and hopefully that's going to help the customers. But for lots of on-prem customers who aren't moving to Sierra Cloud, I think it's a risk, and that's where performance testing can mitigate that risk. The whole point of performance testing is to simulate a real life environment. So when you take an upgrade, you can set up an environment of the upgraded Adrant Expert and the billing system, and we can mimic real life at the month end and year end and actually predict exactly how the system's going to behave in production. So if a test pass, when we do it, if the platforms are identical, it means it will be able to sustain those number of users and transactions. So really, I think a lot of work that we do is within those law firms that do have heavy customizations. Moving forwards, I think best practices try to have as vanilla implementation as possible, but as we know, law firms like to be different and do things their own way. So yeah,
100%. I think we've got Adrian back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Adrian, are you there?
can you see me and hear me?
Oh, we can't.
I do apologise.
Oh,
I
yes,
don't know what's going on.
You were saying, don't worry. You were saying you froze, but you started to talk about
in-house customization. So, lots of law firms are very. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to switch your video off, Adrian?
Yeah.
If you're having internet issues, and that way, hopefully, we can hear you a lot more clearly.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So, yeah. Can you hear me a little better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay. So, as with lots of law, Pinsent Masons has a very technical, very experienced and knowledgeable in-house finance systems team. And they have, as a leader, conducted a lot of in-house customizations over that 20-year period. As a result of that, what they acknowledged was that we would need to look at moving the finance team and the users onto a more faster, efficient billing system, which would be the billing solution, the foundations first, which was the first few phases of the programme. That included platform framework, an application upgrade to expert billing, plus a number of upgrades of the application in between times. Now, for a firm of Pinsent Mason's size, it does take quite a long time to do an upgrade. So the idea was, and the balance would go on the version of the application that we were running at the time. We heard anecdotally very early on that the paperless billing application had lots of performance and scalability issues. And we heard that through reference calls that we had with other law firms. We were really talking about expert billing to start off with, because we had our own difficulties with expert billing too, which is a little bit ironic considering that billing was liked by the users. We didn't really have any performance issues, and it was an aged solution that worked. And so it took us a long time to hand over expert billing into business as usual. Saying that, very early on, because of the anecdotal information we'd found from other law firms, we decided that one of the things we must do before we moved to paperless billing was an amount of performance and scalability testing, because those are the things that we'd heard may become a problem to us because of our eyes on complexity. So we ran some very early tests with a small number of users who really liked paperless billing. They loved it. We kept our workflows very, very simple. We'd managed in the first phase of the programme to rationalise and simplify as many of the in-house customisations as we possibly could. And our approach to building the workflows was exactly the same. Keep it simple, keep it as close to out of the box as possible to avoid adding complexity which could compound any performance issues that we might experience. And I think what we also acknowledged was that every law firm is different, the infrastructure is different, the integrations are different, and there wasn't another comparable law firm that had paperless billing to the scale we were intending to do so. So we were a little bit nervous to start off with. We did work because once we increased our users, and these were manual tests that we carried out. Once we increased our performance tests to 50 users, we had serious crashing issues, we had freezing of screens, and we had lots of unresolvable issues that were causing us all sorts of problems. Aderant did suggest that we upgraded at that point, but for Pinsent Masons, an upgrade can take anything from 6 to 9 months. So for us, we'd taken a longer time to get to where we got to anyway. So that was not an option for us. Aderant did do a little bit of delving into the issues that we were facing and established that with paperless billing, the performance was caused by an issue with multiple timelines on a pre-bill. And we're not talking about 10 or 15 or 20, we're talking about thousands of timelines on a pre-bill. And that was causing to time out. So obviously, their only suggestion was that we upgraded, and we'd already discounted that. So what they suggested was that we engaged Prolifics, who had worked with other law firms, performance issues, and with the same applications. Not something that we considered, and Prolifics testing was not an organisation that we knew about or had any experience with. So we actually talked to Walkers about that while we went through the engagement process. And Nav is exactly right. One of the issues that we faced was we ran a 100-user physical test, and it takes a long time to prepare that number of users, the amount of data that you need to run those tests, and to analyse the results. And obviously for us, we had to avoid month-end peaks. You know, we also had to avoid holidays and quarter ends and half-year ends. So you only have a limited amount of time to do that physical testing before you start preparing for the next one, or you prepare all at once at the risk of people falling away in the wayside. So we explained to Prolifics the issues that we'd had, and they had experienced some similar issues in the past, but not exactly the same. And what they suggested to us, we did talk a little bit to Aderant about this as well. What they suggested to us was that if we were able to increase capacity at short notice, we might be able to mask the issues we were facing rather than resolve them. And that would help us move to the next stage of the programme, but it would acknowledge, and we'd have to come back to that perhaps and do an upgrade later. So our approach performance testing was we sat down and walked through the process that we ran with Prolifics. And while we onboarded them, they started to produce these test scripts that would replicate the 100-user test as close as possible that we had just run. We ran that, I think it was 1 month, and 2 months later, they were ready to rerun those scripts. And that was things like creating multiple pre-bills simultaneously, multiple user edits on multiple pre-bills simultaneously, making edits to timelines, obviously because that's an issue that we had experienced that was a really bad one and was causing us the biggest problems, and also making edits to large number of timelines on a single pre-bill. So all of these things, we had about a list of 8 or 9 tests that we
Do you want to continue, just Faz, about continue the story while Adrian's just coming back?
Yeah, absolutely. Carrying on from what Adrian mentioned. So it was pretty much, the standard process of understanding the billing cycle within Pinsent Masons, and having our team script that. So it's everything that an end user would do as part of that process. We'd record down in these automated scripts. We'd confirm with Adrian and the end users that was correct, and that's how things were done within Pinsent Masons. And then we'd agree to start running and executing those tests. So, scaling up, starting off from a small number of users, going all the way up to 100. Oh, quick question from Neil. No, we cover various different practice management systems as well. So things like 3E, and we're about to kick off a project for Fulcrum GT as well.
Yeah.
It's just, I suppose we kind of came upon these issues around the Adderant platform, and we partnered with them to help their customers. So with both with Walkers and Pinsent Masons, it's around Adderant.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I mentioned, Carolyn, it really was. It's about trying to understand where issues lie. So it's about taking the users up and trying to identify at what point does the system become unresponsive, where are the performance issues, and then trying to hone in on those to help the internal team and also Adderant as well, who were on the calls, to be able to find out what the issues are. And it's almost this iterative process, Carolyn. It's like trying to do a bit of detectiving. So yes. It's about rerunning these tests, making fixes, and rerunning the same test again to see, has the performance improved, has it stayed the same, has it degraded, and going through a process of elimination until we start identifying the issues and making the right fixes.
How unusual. It sounds like it's all of these things always sound so obvious, don't they? But they're clearly not. To what extent do you think people shortchange that initial process of really, that almost like that teamwork of sitting down and really taking the time? I guess there's always that pressure, isn't there, to get this done, and everyone's probably in a bit of a panic. But actually, how important is it to take that time to really work as a team and to really work through that process and work out exactly what the problem is? It sounds like that, this is perhaps one of the differentiators.
I think what we found in our experience is if law firms had issues in the past, so as Naz mentioned, that they experienced performance issues, and Adrian mentioned as well that she was aware that other customers had performance issues, then customers take the time to make sure that they get performance testing right. It just it just goes up are you back, Adrian?
Adrian's back.
Yes, I'm back.
Quite an eventful webinar so far, Adrian. One to remember.
I tell you what, do you know what now, just forgive me, should we jump to Adrian?
Yes, please.
Shall we?
Please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adrian, we were having a chat about the importance of working together as a team and really the mapping out process and how that can be a real differentiator. But by all means, please continue your journey, your story, because that's be great to hear back.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a real partnership, and it is worth saying that with Faz and his team, because we had literally we realized that on our on-premise infrastructure probably wouldn't perform, so we ran through those tests first and very quickly discounted that. But it was very much a process of trial and error when we got to, because we did move to the cloud. I had a cloud environment set up simultaneously just in case we got to that position, and we did very quickly get to the position where we acknowledged it was not going to work on premise. The infrastructure was very aged, and to increase capacity at short notice, the only way we could possibly do that in the cloud. But with Faz and his team, we all had clear roles and responsibilities. We worked on a regular basis. We had a plan that we worked to. We communicated every day. We had a meeting every day, and we knew exactly what was expected of all of us at any time. When we got to configuring the servers, it was trial and error, but we relied really heavily on the knowledge that Prolifics had gained from other law firms, and also from our in-house technical guys who had a really great knowledge of cloud technology. And so it was all about that trial and error, which was difficult for me because I like a plan. I like to know what's going to happen and it's going to happen. So the trial and error approach was a little bit out of my comfort zone, but it absolutely worked. And we found that by mixing up and down with the configuration of the servers, we found the best possible configuration for the number of concurrent users we were expecting, and also the number of concurrent.
Did that resonate with you, Naz? What Adrian was just saying?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. I mean, that's why I found the Prolifix comes in. So I able to tell them in a plain English and business process wise, they convert that into a scripting. That's the partnership I found was working really well for us. So any action they can script through as automation, and that scenario can be tested clearly as well. So
yeah.
And I think, just following on from that, it sounds easy, Carolyn. We come in, we listen, and then we create scripts, and it seems like a relatively straightforward process. It takes time to get to that position. So when we first engaged with Walker's and Naz's team, they had an incumbent, but they just didn't understand a billing process, understand practice management systems, and trying to understand that and then be able to use the right technology and the right tools to be able to capture that in a script. It can be really quite challenging. So this has been built up over a number of years of coming across issues and challenges and overcoming them until we're able to engage with a customer and make it a straightforward and easy process.
Is there, I mean, practically speaking, and with your kind of commercial from the firm's perspective, is there a sort of point at which they should bring you in? Like, obviously you don't want to get to the point where things have gone wrong, really, and I mean, I know that's very easy to say, but like, is there a point where an ideal point where obviously costs are always a concern, but is there a point where you should be brought in in order to avoid sort of problems occurring?
Absolutely. I think right at the beginning of the outset of the project. So, if you're looking at an upgrade and you've had performance issues in the past, if you're looking to implement a new platform or practice management system, or indeed, if you're looking to migrate to the cloud, engage us early. We can scope up the requirements, give you an idea of the costs involved. But typically we get engaged with customers when they're doing UAT. They've got a go live date and they draft us in a 3-week window to deliver a project. And
it's worth saying that I really wish we'd known about Prolifix sooner. We experienced a lot of issues with expert billing performance, and if we'd known about Faz and his amazing team who literally go above and beyond, then we would not have taken as long to hand over expert billing into business as usual, because we had serious performance issues with that, and I think we can learn from that.
When you get called in, Faz, to sort of a runaway project, where is it possible to say where it's usually gone wrong? Is there sort of a learning that we can share? There's something that we can take away from your sort of expertise of seeing so many of these projects?
Yeah, it's a familiar pattern that we come across all the time. People have heavily customized billing workflows. They've had issues in the past, and as soon as they make a change on the system, Aderant, or other practice management system vendors, they test a vanilla build. They don't test every customer configuration, and nor should they if they've got 350 customers globally. So whenever there's a large change made to their platform, whenever they introduce updates, upgrades, or a different model like their cloud version, it introduces risk, and it's all about mitigating those risks when it comes to month and year end. And an organization has to make that choice of, do we invest in 3 weeks out of a project, so like the life cycle, do we invest the budget to do this engagement, and what risks will it mitigate for us?
Yeah, and maybe just Adrian and Naz, to put you on the spot, if there's like one key takeaway from this in terms of a key piece of learning or something that you think you can share, because I started out by saying this is group therapy, like in the spirit of ending up on our sort of sharing one key takeaway, what would you say would be something that you could share with the group and subsequent people to listen? Perhaps I could start with Naz.
Yeah, my journey with Vocus, I
Actually,
equally
you know
put
what, Naz, I'm going to stop you.
Adrienne.
I'm going to start with Adrienne. Just in case. I'm
just
so sorry, Naz. Adrienne, go.
Don't be afraid to change direction. That's the one thing I would say is, if you find that things aren't working, our hardest decision was not to stop the program, because we could easily have stopped and everybody would have accepted that. Change of direction is sometimes something you have to consider and you have to be able to justify. And Prolifics and Aderant, to be fair, helped us do that.
Brilliant. You got to say that whole sentence. Naz, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Please.
That's right. Yeah. With my experience with the performance testing, we had a number of failures in the past. So when I plan a transformation project or any upgrade project, anything I do as a tech lead or program manager, I will equally put the importance of the UAT to the performance testing. So it will all my template design now will have a performance testing. It doesn't matter what's the change. It's a change to the environment, change to the process, change to the application. Let's do a simple performance testing and get the approvals from the stakeholders. So that will take away long, difficult process of selling back to the business users. So once we confirm the tick box, basically, yes, perform tested, acceptable performance, everyone said correct. And equally important for me to do the UAT testing as the function work end to end. Is it pass or fail? Equally, I want that pass or fail from the performance testers as well. Are we meeting the criteria? Are we with the benchmarking? And that's going to, especially with that, the finance application type thing, which is the front end is more and more. It used to be a back end users now. It used to be cashiers and billers. Nowadays, secretaries and fee earners are come as our main users are. So as an implementer, tech lead, I probably would equally important for UAT is important. At the same time, performance testing is important for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
There we go. As expected.
I hope so, please. And I know, it's so Gen AI, I wasn't involved with these two projects, but I know going forward, Faz, you'll be talking a lot about Gen AI and the role that can play as well, in terms of other projects and future projects.
Oh yeah, I think so. Well, the whole legal sector is all about leveraging generative AI. Within testing as well, it's, we're working with a couple of law firms at the moment where we're leveraging what's called agentic automation. So that's using large language models to come up with tests that users would do for UAT and be able to create the scripts that we would have consultants to do and to be able to automatically execute those tests. And that's where the market's going. So, one day maybe we'll have less consultants and we'll have more agentic automation. But at the moment, the trial we're getting, it's very early days. So, these LLMs will come up with spurious tests that, aren't really relevant. But as they become more and more trained, what we're finding is, law firms, rather than having to lean on end users to do UAT, can start using automation and generative AI to be able to automate that process.
Yeah, fab. Okay, yeah, no, I'm sure. And obviously the more we can rely on that and not having to rely on lawyers or people and users,
Exactly.
the better. Yeah, because I think that's where the real heartache and delay occurs, isn't it? I think thank you to everybody listening in to our group therapy session, and to Adrienne for continuously coming back and in. Thanks, guys. No, that's so interesting to hear. I think these it's your experiences and talking through your experiences that is the real learning here. So I really appreciate you making the time. And if you've got any questions, we'll be publishing this recording, and you can no doubt engage with Prolifics afterwards. And potentially Naz and Adrienne too, in terms of references, etc. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a real pleasure. It's been eventful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.